The autonomic nervous system is often abbreviated with ANS. So that's how it'll be shown throughout the PowerPoint for autonomic nervous system. So there it is, ANS. This is going to control your glands inside your body, your cardiac, and your smooth muscle. So these are all things that would fall under the category of involuntary. You don't really think about, oh, it's that time of the month, I should secrete follicle stimulating hormone. You don't have to think about, my heart needs to beat. You don't have to think about the smooth muscle in your digestive system that's moving your food through your digestive system. So that's what involuntary means, that these aren't under conscious control. That doesn't mean that you can't exert some conscious control. So specifically, like your heart rate, if you were to get very excited, you could amp up your heart rate and blood pressure. You could also do meditation and calming exercises to help slow them down. So that would be voluntary control over them, but you don't actually say beat, 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 like your heart beats on its own. It doesn't need you to do so. So that makes it visceral. So that's our visceral motor system. So that's the things in our abdominopelvic, so that's your abdomen and your pelvic regions, as well as your thoracic cavity. This does not include the skeletal muscle. So the skeletal muscle is considered somatic, and we've already looked at somatic reflexes. So now we're going to look at visceral reflexes. And here's a visceral reflex. These are unconscious. These are automatic stereotyped responses. So just like the somatic reflexes where you step on a tack or you put your hand on the stove and you pull it away, these are automatic and stereotyped. So they're going to happen without you needing to put any effort into it, and they're always going to happen the same way. The big difference is that these are unconscious. So you don't really notice when these reflexes occur. Unlike putting your hand on a burning stove and pulling your hand away, that's something that you would be consciously aware of. These are going to happen in the brainstem, lower down, and they're not going to something you have to put conscious effort into. So if you look at these 5 steps in the reflex, they are the exact same 5 steps from the somatic reflex. So you're going to have some kind of sensory receptor. It's going to receive information. An afferent neuron, remember A comes first in the alphabet, so afferent neuron is going to send that sensory information to an integration center. This is going to think about what just happened and very quickly send a response to an efferent neuron, A before E in the alphabet, and then that will send it to an effector. And so in this case, the effector is going to be a gland or a cardiac muscle or a smooth muscle. Whereas in the somatic reflex, the effector was a skeletal muscle. So here's an example of an unconscious visceral reflex that you are doing that you don't necessarily know you're doing. So a baroreceptor is a pressure receptor, and you have these in your arteries, and they tell you when your blood pressure is too high. So if the blood pressure spikes and goes high, the glossopharyngeal nerve will send sensory information to the medulla oblongata here. So glossopharyngeal nerve, if you remember back, what number is this? Hopefully you said 9. All right, so that's step 2. That's my afferent nerve. The medulla oblongata here is my integration center. This is going to think about it and send out a response through the vagus nerve. Do you remember what number vagus is? Vagus is number 10. And that is going to send a motor response. So this is my efferent nerve, and it's going to send a motor response to my heart. So the heart here is the effector. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to decrease the heart rate. So if I push less blood out of the heart for each minute, the pressure in this artery should go down. The autonomic nervous system is divided into 2 different regions. They have different anatomy as far as the network of neurons that connect things together, and they have different functions. So very opposite functions for the most part. However, they innervate the same organs. So they're both going to have nerves in the stomach. They're both going to have nerves in the heart. They're both going to have nerves in the eye, the blood vessels, the intestines. And that's because they have to work together to achieve some of the things that we need to do. So there's the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And these are the two branches here of the autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic is our fight or fight. And so this is going to adapt the body for physical activity. And this is going to cause increased alertness. So your heart rate's going to increase, your blood pressure is going to increase, respiration rate is going to increase so that we can get more oxygen to the body. Blood sugar is going to increase. You're going to mobilize blood sugar to get your muscles some energy. And we're going to send the blood flow to the muscles to get that energy to the muscles. So this is going to happen in times of arousal, exercise, stress, danger, trauma, anger, and fear. So I like to think of this as you're being chased by a bear, right? You come up against some kind of stress, trauma. Are you going to fight it or run from it? So being chased by a bear is the example I usually use. The opposite of this is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is coined the rest and digest. So this is going to do things like reduce your energy expenditure and normal body maintenance. So digestion and elimination. So your digestive system, your urinary system. If you think about being chased by a bear, are you going to worry about how hungry you are because you skipped lunch that day? Or are you just going to run your butt off? So the parasympathetic nervous system is going to happen in times when there's no overt stress or trauma, and the body is kind of relaxed and it's doing its normal maintenance or sleeping, or you just ate and you need to digest a big meal kind of thing. Think about eating a Thanksgiving dinner. You're very much in your parasympathetic nervous system when you have just eaten Thanksgiving dinner. The body doesn't alternate between the two of them, so it's not fight or flight or rest and digest. So we don't live in this constant dichotomy of being chased by bears and then eating Thanksgiving dinner. That's not like what our normal life is. So the normal systems, both of them are active at the same time. However, one might be more active than the other, or vice versa, to achieve the results that we're looking for. So for example, there's your heart rate would be much quicker if left to itself. So if your brain did not control your heart rate, your heart would beat on its own a lot faster than it does. So your parasympathetic, your resting nervous system, slows your heart rate down to about 70 to 80 beats per minute when you're not in some kind of flight or fight situation where you need a fast heart rate. In normal situations, the sympathetic nervous system will constrict your arteries, which actually raises your blood pressure. And that's useful for shunting blood to different areas in our body because you don't actually have enough blood in your body to fill all of your arteries. So your sympathetic nervous system is going to help control where the blood is going at any one time. So both of them can have excitatory effects, both of them can have inhibitory effects. They just depend on what's the situation, what part of my body am I innervating, and what's happening overall. So take a moment and contrast between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic divisions of the autonomic nervous system.